Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Yater Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons, The Forward Corporation, Security Credit Union, Offshore Tackle, Hammond Drives and Equipment, Garber Chevrolet, the West Branch Visitors Bureau, Rapid River Knife Works, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Well, thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to another edition of the Outdoor Magazine radio show right here on the Outdoor Magazine radio network on more than 30 radio stations across our great state of Michigan. And so glad to have you along with us, as always. You know, I say that every week, but I truly am so glad to have you along with us. There are so many different things you could be doing, media you could be consuming, things you could be watching. The fact that you hear my voice, whether it's the broadcast version of the show or the podcast, means a lot to me, and I do truly appreciate it. I would not be able to do this as long as I have without your support. This is my 45th year in broadcasting. And a little inside baseball here. This show, we always record on Wednesday. Well, this Wednesday was April 1st. So I started out my live stream, my Behind the Mic live stream before the show by making the announcement that I was going to retire. You know, I wasn't going to retire for the longest time, and then, you know, things came up, and I made the decision to retire. That was an April Fool's joke. I'm not retiring. I'm probably never retiring. They're gonna carry me out of the studio horizontally. Those are my plans. Although my plans and God's plans are never the same. I know that. So this is, though, the month of April. April is a wonderful month. Talk about springtime, at least eventually, in all parts of our state. We had a day earlier in the week, I think it was 70 degrees. I put shorts on and took a walk. It felt like June. It was glorious. And then the next day it snowed. But that is springtime in Michigan. But there's a lot of hunting and fishing opportunities in the month of April. Springtime steelhead, springtime perch, springtime walleye, springtime salmon, springtime trout. Those are all in the month of April. And, of course, turkey season starts in April, too. That's only 2 weeks away. As you're hearing the broadcast version of the show, can that be? How did turkey season sneak up on me so fast this year? I am concerned, though. I'm just not seeing birds. I mean, not at all. Made a drive last weekend from the east side of the state over to the west side, and then obviously turned around and came back home. And during that entire 4-hour road trip total, I didn't see one flock of birds. I didn't see one single strutter. I didn't see anything. I didn't see any jakes or hens out by the road. Didn't see anything. And we were driving at prime time in the morning and again just in the evening, and didn't see any birds. So I am concerned about that. Now, the number of birds across Michigan and the country is down a little bit. Nobody quite knows why. But, you know, maybe here in Michigan, it's nothing more than the population was growing. We had birds everywhere for several years. And then kind of, you know, Mother Nature kind of scaled things back to the natural carrying capacity of the land. Maybe that's what it is. I don't know. Certainly do not see the number of birds. I'm hoping that I can find a longbeard somewhere during that 6-week season, preferably in the first week of the season. But we'll see what happens. I'll be bow hunting. I think I'm going to use my crossbow for turkeys this spring. And we'll see what happens. NRC meeting coming up Wednesday. Some very big issues will be discussed. Now, I had originally thought that these issues would be voted on in the April NRC meeting, but no, they're just going to be discussed and then voted on in May, which actually makes me feel better. That makes a lot more sense. But some of the things being discussed are one buck tag, different doe management, changing the muzzleloader season, maybe changing the firearm season, and maybe bringing back baiting. Now, thinking of the $1 tag, though, I already have my deer tags for the fall season of 2026, a combo tag, which has 2 buck licenses. What if the NRC in May votes to go to a $1 tag? Do they extend that out to 2027, or do they make it effective for this year, 2026? I asked some folks in the DNR about that. I said, what happens if the NRC votes for a $1 tag and a lot of people already have 2 tags in their pocket? Can they do that? And I was told, yeah, well, the NRC can pretty much do whatever they want. So that will be an interesting situation. Coming up here on the 15th, which is real close. I can't get over how fast this last month has gone by. The 15th, which is tax day, we're having a big Wednesday night live at the Lumberjack Restaurant in West Branch. 989-343-0892 for reservations, 989-343-0892 for reservations. We are not sold out at this point. We probably will. 989-343-0892 for reservations. This is something we do 2-3 times a year at the Lumberjack. Now, I do a Wednesday night live stream every Wednesday night at 7 o'clock. This one just happens to be at the Lumberjack Restaurant. The live stream will start at 7 o'clock, as they always do. I would encourage you to make your reservations for 5:30 or 6. That'll give you time to get in there, order your meal, eat your dinner before I come walking around with a camera and a microphone and stick it in your face. We will have some cool items to give away. We'll have a lot of my friends will be there. Nick Grillo of Michigan Brand will be there. Rich Krazan of Killer Food Plots will be there. Brad Dupuis of Angler Quest will be there. Bill Hahn of J Sporting Goods will be there. Andy Weiss of Truck Trolley will be there. I just found out John Upp of 41 Great Lakes will be there. So we're going to have a lot of key people in the outdoor industry there. And, give you a chance to talk with them, shoot the breeze, and have a good meal and just have fun. 989-343-0892. Speaking of events coming up, our 3rd annual Mike Avery Outdoors charity golf outing, Friday, July 31st at the West Branch Country Club. This event was kind of in flux for a while because we didn't quite know what was going to happen with MUCC's youth camp. MUCC has decided to temporarily put the youth camp on hold. Well, that made my decision very clear. I am now partnering with a group called Outdoor Mentors, Pass It On. They are formed to get kids in the outdoors, which is why I decided I wanted to do a golf outing in the first place, to raise money to help get kids in the outdoors. So that's what we're going to do. Friday, July 31st at the West Branch Country Club. Details coming up on how to sign up, but put that on your calendar right now. Also, last week here in the studio, I talked about my contempt for the anti-hunters and how they want to impose, that's the word, they want to impose their lifestyle on us. They not only detest hunting and hunters, but they want to make it so none of us can hunt. I said that really bothered me because we don't try to impose our way of life on them. I am concerned about anti-hunters and how they could affect the future of hunting, but I am more concerned about infighting in the hunting groups. I think that is the biggest threat to hunting today. Not the antis, but our fellow hunters and anglers and trappers and shooters and whatever else. And I think a lot of this is caused by anti-social media. It seems like nothing we can do anymore is right, or it's not up to somebody else's standards. To which I say, don't worry about it. Don't you worry about how I hunt or fish or shoot or trap. I won't worry about how you do it. As long as you do it legally, I don't care. I can't mandate, I can't dictate my morals and ethics to you. So as long as you do it legally, I will support you 100%, even if it's something I don't choose to be involved in. For example, and I have no problem at all with dog hunters, hound hunters chasing coyotes or bears. No problem at all. I don't do it, but I support you folks for doing it. How many different examples do we want to talk about? Crossbows. I don't even want to go there. On a more serious note, this is Easter weekend. The single most important and beautiful time of year for Christians. And I am a Christian. I know we have to have Easter eggs, and we have to have Easter hunts, and we have to have Easter baskets, and we have to have Easter bunnies. I get that. We will be doing the same thing at the Avery house for the grandkids and great-granddaughter this year. So I get that we have to do that. But please don't lose sight of the real reason for the celebration of Easter. It is a resurrection of a Savior. This is the one thing that salvation and Christianity hangs on. If there was not Easter, if Jesus didn't rise from the dead, if there was not an empty tomb, everything we do in this world would be for naught. There would be no reason, basically, for us to survive, to be here. Okay? So please keep in mind the real reason for the Easter season. Among the chocolate bunnies, the Easter baskets, all that good stuff, keep in mind the real reason for the Easter celebration. Coming up after the break, Jason Graham of Linwood Beach Marina Send It Charters talks about getting your boat ready for the water. Then Steve Windom of Outdoor Mentors on our big golf outing and how you can sign up. I'll tell you what's coming up in the rest of the show. But it's going to be a good one. Glad you're with us. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Alpena on WZTK 105.7 FM. You can hear us in Port Huron, WPHM 1380 AM. Big changes coming to WPHM. More on that next week, but I'm proud to be able to continue working with the folks in Port Huron. And you can hear the show in Manistee on WTIQ 1490 AM, 95.3 FM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by VersaSkins. Just change your skin for the season you're in. Why buy a bunch of different sets of expensive hunting clothes when you can buy one good quality set, snap-on, zip-on, and outer shell of a different camo pattern in less than a minute? I will be wearing my VersaSkins jacket as I hit the turkey woods this spring. If you need big sizes, 4, 5, 6X, VersaSkins is for you. If you are a saddle hunter, VersaSkins makes a jacket specifically for saddle hunters. Check them out online at versaskins.com or go to amazon.com and do a search for VersaSkins brand. VersaSkins, change your skin for the season you're in. Now, right now, the season we're in is open water fishing. Ice season is behind us now, at least for most anglers across the state. It's time to get the waders out. It's time to get the boats out. If your boat has been in storage all winter long, what is that process like? And how do you do things correctly? Because you don't want to be that guy at the boat launch, your first time out for your shakedown cruise, the boat won't start, you didn't put the plug in, whatever. Captain Jason Graham of Send It Charters of Linwood Beach Marina spends as much time on the water as anybody I know. He's also very much involved in the service side of things at Linwood Beach, and he's with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Cap, welcome. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Mike?
I'm doing real good. Kind of a wrap-up. How was your ice fishing season?
We had a great season. We had lots of good safe ice amongst all the bay. Lots of good fish. A lot of big perch got caught this winter as well, but fantastic walleye fishery we had this winter with the safe ice, and lots of guys got out, lots of customers, and lots of happy faces with ice season for sure.
So is there any ice floating around out there now on the bay, or is it wide open?
Not to my knowledge. On the Linwood side, we had some shore ice here 4 or 5 days ago, but that has since gone. We had some hard west winds, some hard east winds, kind of move that ice around. But for the most part, I was out Saturday evening, and I never saw a piece of ice on the last trip I was out on Saturday. So
this early season ice out trolling, this is something that anglers are really starting to to key in on now, aren't they? I mean, you can have some wonderful trolling this time of year.
Absolutely. It's no different than ice fishing. The water's still cold. When I was out there Saturday, the water was still 36 degrees. Most of the fish were still in the bay and not quite pushing the river. I heard of I saw a 9.7 6-pounder brought to the marina, and I waded in for a gentleman. I heard of a 13-pounder getting caught here last week on trolling big bandits on the Saginaw Bay. I had a customer catch a 9-pounder Saturday afternoon right out front of the marina, 16 inches of water, and it's all full of eggs, of course, just giant fish and trophy fish. If you wanted to put one on the wall, this is the time to be on Saginaw Bay to catch one.
Jason, do you go up into the river at all, or do you stay out in the bay?
For the most part, I stay in the bay. There's lots of water out there. It's easier for me to control the lines and things like that on the bay versus the bumper boat traffic, the jigging. I can do jigging trips, but most of my customers, they prefer to have a good day, especially when it's cold out. The other thing about it is we don't have the current in the river we used to, so a lot of the fish will spawn on the reefs and not necessarily push the river. So we get a lot of reef fish will spawn out there as well, and a lot of trolling aspects. And you got stages too. You got probably a 30-day window of fish pushing the river, coming back out. So there's always fish in the inner bay, and there's always fish in the river at the same time, just different pre-spawn, post-spawn, and spawning situations.
So in the bay, and we're talking Saginaw Bay this time of year, what is the key? Is it water clarity or water temperature?
It's both. So I was out front in the front of the marina between the state park and the marina. We had a bunch of stained water. But what happened was all the push from the river water got pushed to our side because of the east and northeast winds we had. Well, when the winds change and go west, that pushes that dirty water somewhere else. So when I was out Saturday evening this past week, we had a dirty water situation, a stained water situation, and a clean water situation. And most of the fish I was actually catching and marking on my graph was in that in-between, that tea-colored water, not dirty mud, not gin clear, but in that tea-colored water. It helps those fish ambush their prey just a little bit better because they can't be seen, and it helps the bite as far as trying to get a bait to act like a minnow or a perch and get these fish active in that stained water, but not necessarily dirty or clear.
Well, and speaking of walleye ambushing their prey, have you ever seen any examples of them hiding out in that really dirty river water and jumping out into the stained water, or is it just too dirty in the river water for them?
Absolutely, I see it quite often. In fact, that's what I was trying to find is that jump, that transition for. I would actually try to run the boat down that mud line dirt. I'd have boards on one side of the dirt line and boards on the other side of the dirt line. And when I found that contrast, I was catching fish on both sides of the boat in that muddy contrast water.
So a lot of people have not been on the water yet, right? They don't have their boats out yet. They're just getting them out of storage right now. Let's talk about this process. What do you have to do? And I think it's easier with these modern outboards these days, but what do we have to do to make sure we are ready to hit the water?
The first thing I would recommend is you charge your batteries. Most most people that have boats in storage, they just turn them off and they sit, and those batteries will drain down just by sitting there in the cold temperatures. Charge your batteries up and make sure the charger actually turned on. Don't just walk over, pull the plug in, and it's fine, walk away. Make sure the lights come on. Make sure you don't have a blown fuse in one of the leads to the batteries, and make sure that battery's all charged up and ready to go for both your cranking battery and your trolling motor batteries. Also, change the batteries in your remote controls. A lot of guys will get out there, the trolling motor works, but they can't, and the remote control batteries are dead. Things like that. Probably the biggest thing I would recommend is putting a splash of fresh gas, especially in your gas tanks with these boats. With gas prices the way they are, wreck fuel is more expensive, of course, but in the long run, it lasts longer in your tank, especially sitting in winter storage. If you use sea foam or some type of chemical to make your gas last longer, that's great. But if you had any type of ethanol or pump gas from a regular gas station, that ethanol will separate in that tank in that 3, 4, 5 month span sitting in storage. So I always put a fresh splash of gas, fill that tank up with either wreck fuel or a premium grade fuel, and then that boat will run better that first trip out to run and mix with the fuel that's already in there and get that running better. And probably the number one thing I've had this year already calls on is my kicker won't start. You get on the water, they get out there, the kicker won't start. And I see a lot of times it's a spark plug. Have a spare set of spark plugs for that kicker motor, especially these newer models. I don't think spark plugs are built quite the way they were back in the day to last longer. But most outboards we've been seeing nowadays, we're changing that spark plug on that kicker motor every single year.
I want to go back to gas, to fuel for a minute here. After this first tank of gas, later in the spring, early summer, can we just pull up to a gas station and fill the boat up, or do we have to use the more expensive premium fuel?
Absolutely, you can use that gas. It's not not an issue at all. What the problem is when that boat sits. So let's say you get that boat ready this time of year, and you're fishing, and things come up, soccer practice, softball games, baseball practice, things like that, and you're not going to fish for 2 or 3 months. If you use the ethanol, using that boat constant, or the fact you're using that fuel up as you go out, you're fine using the pump fuel. I would recommend at the end of the season putting rec fuel back in that boat towards the end of the season. It'll save you some money that way. But as long as you're using that fuel on a constant pace, you'll be fine running pump gas for sure.
What do you have there at the marina?
We have all rec fuel. We have 89 rec fuel and 91 rec fuel both. Like Verados, Mercury Verados, for example, run a premium 91 to 93 octane fuel. So all the Verado, we recommend putting 91 in, but most of the regular 4-stroke and 2-stroke outboards, we just put regular 89 rec fuel in for those boats.
And you were talking about batteries, too. I hear a lot of conversation these days about going to the is it lithium? Is that what I'm trying to figure out?
Lithium.
Yeah. Tell me about those.
That is correct. Yes, lithium. So lithium batteries, they're not new to the market by no means, but they're getting better and better, and especially with the warranties and price points. A lot more companies are making them. A couple things I'll recommend when you're buying a battery. If you're going to buy a battery, make sure you have the warranty and have the warranty that you can actually take it to and replace it. A lot of our customers will bring an ad in from somebody or Amazon, those kind of things, and see a lithium battery that's $200, $300, $400. And I understand there's a price that, there's affordability and not affordability. But what's going to happen if that battery has a problem? Where are you going to take that battery to get it serviced and fixed? Well, you got to call Amazon or call the market or the dealer of that battery. So if you're going to buy a battery, a lithium battery per se, buy the battery that you can get your hands on. If you have a problem on Saturday, you can have it fixed to fish again on Sunday or the following week versus having to wait a couple of weeks for batteries. The other thing I'll recommend on lithium batteries is make sure you buy the matching charger for that battery manufacturer. Because the very first question they ask you is what battery charger you're using. And if you're not using their charger, they're going to have a whole list of things to check, and then call me back and give me those answers. That's one thing I'll tell you about lithium batteries for sure.
So what's the advantage of them, though? Why do people go to them these days?
Lithium batteries, the power source is a much straighter, more power source. It's like a 36-volt battery. A 36-volt battery and a 60-amp-hour cell is a 31 series battery cell all by itself, just one battery. That battery produces more energy in a consistent time frame than 3 31 series lead-acid batteries.
Oh.
There's also a computer chip in these batteries now, and that computer chip will actually go to full charge, then shut the battery down while the charger's not doing all the work. The battery will actually shut itself down. Once it gets down to 30%, this battery will shut itself down and put it as a safe mode till you charge it again. They're also lighter. A 36-volt battery that we sell there at the marina weighs about 40 pounds. So we're taking 180 to 200 pounds out of these 3 battery boats to about 1 battery, and so you're taking a full person out of your boat as far as weight and storage space. You gain 2 more compartments for storage. The next big thing I'll tell you is they're designed to have life cycles or cycle times, 3,000 to 5,000 cycles. A cycle is considered using the battery, charging it, using the battery, charge it. 3,000 to 5,000 times you can do that for the life expectancy of these batteries. Where a lead-acid battery, as you charge it, you want to get 200 or 300 times you can charge that battery up, and also it's going to gain memory. You go out fish for a day, the battery gets low, and you forget to charge it. Well, when it charges it back up, it's only going to go so far. It will not go back to full capacity again. So lithium it's more power. It's a lighter battery, longevity, better warranties. We have a battery at the marina we sell right now. It's a 15-year warranty on it.
Wow.
So the price point's more expensive, but there's so many more advantages for a deep cycle tight battery.
Hang tight, Jason. We got to take a break. We're talking with Captain Jason Graham of Send It Charters, senditcharters.com. He works out of the Linwood Beach Marina, linwoodbeachmarina.com. Jason is helping us get the boat ready for that shakedown cruise. And is there anything more exciting and sometimes nerve-wracking than that very first time on the water for the season? Is everything going to work right? Are you going to have problems? More coming up after the break. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Caro on two stations, WKYO 1360 AM and WIDL 92.1 FM. You can hear us in St. Joe on WSJM 94.9 FM, and you can hear us north of the bridge in the Sioux, WKNW 1400 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by the Truck Trolley. Are you sick of leaning over your tailgate to try to get what is slid to the front of the bed of your truck? Or, like I used to have, the old man hook where you'd stand there and reach out, grab what up there, and just slide it back? Well, you don't have to do that with a Truck Trolley. Truck Trolley is a Michigan-made, family-owned company. It's an inexpensive piece of gear. It's not permanently attached to your truck. It's just held in with straps. But it allows you to get access to everything in the bed of your truck. It is two side-by-side, very hard plastic trays on rollers that you can slide out and push back in. If you need complete access and you're carrying something really heavy like gravel or stone or whatever, you can take it out in a couple of minutes and put it back in. I think it is a really cool product. I use it probably almost every day, certainly every week in my truck. Check them out online at trucktrolley.com. That's trucktrolley.com. Andy Weiss of Truck Trolley will be with us at the next Wednesday Night Live at the Lumberjack Restaurant coming up on the 15th. Talking now with Captain Jason Graham of Send It Charters, senditcharters.com and linwoodbeachmarina.com. Jason, I want to talk a little bit about your background. I mean, your background is interesting. You were a tournament angler. You actually worked at Jay's Sporting Goods. How did you get to where you are today?
Well, that's a long story. We got a few minutes, but I'll do my best here. Started out as a kid fishing in ponds and lakes, and I loved bass fishing and any type of fishing at all. And I started working in Jay's back in 1995, and I started actually in the archery department as a bow mechanic. Dave Smith and I were wrenching on bows. We still had the glass window there and the bow presses, and
Yep.
started in there. And they started to have they had a Monday night bass club, $10 Monday night bass club, like a little golf league. And I showed up to the first tournament at 11-foot little rowboat with a trolling motor on the front. And I took that tournament. I had 3 fish, and I won that first tournament. Back when it's 24 years old, somewhere in there. And I just set off from there. Started bass fishing. Got into the elite level, FLW, Everstarts, BFLs, Michigan Division, traveled all over the country bass fishing, and absolutely loved it. I still love it to this day. But I got to the point where I was always on the road. So got to the point, I still love fishing. I still want to be in the fishing industry. I still want to be fishing all the time that I can. So I got my charter business started back here probably 10 years ago now. And I still do bass charters now and again. I don't fish tournaments anymore, but I enjoy getting out and teaching people how to fish, taking people fishing, talking about fishing, doing seminars, and still have some of the same sponsors I had 30 years ago when I got started to this day.
Nice. How is walleye fishing? How is the mindset or the techniques? Is it a different world than bass fishing, or is it basically the same thing, just a different fish?
It's kind of the same, but the fish, you're not going to find a big walleye in 5 inches of water under a lily pad, Matt. You're not going to find that very often. So, my forte was the slot fishing, throwing a frog. The biggest, nastiest, thickest weed you can find, that's where my boat was, and I love doing that. Where walleye fishing, nowadays with the forward-facing sonar, things like that, a lot of the walleye pros are learning from the bass guys how to catch these deeper fish, and it's transitioned from the bass guys to walleye guys and back and forth. Now we can cast to these fish just like the bass guys do. Don't necessarily troll for bass. It's not one of the things that's legal in tournaments, but the casting market has actually come full circle for both industries, bass and walleye. Yeah. And all the same techniques are pretty much used the same, except for the night crawlers. We don't use night crawlers in bass fishing, but the walleyes absolutely love them. So,
you talk about forward-facing sonar, electronics in general. How important is it to install and rig those correctly?
It's very important, especially with the guys buying these new boats, and they see it on TV, they hear about it, they have to have it. It's a game changer in the market. It is absolutely a game changer. But make sure you rig it properly, because what happens is the very first problem we have is when you put multiple graphs on a boat, there's not enough battery power. Yeah. They're not either wired to the wrong battery, or they don't have enough power to last them all day, and all of a sudden the boat won't start, or the graphs turn off, and they can't figure out why. These new graphs do take some more power. The forward-facing sonar itself has its own power source. It has to have power into the battery as well. So what a lot of times we do on these, especially these bigger boats, these walleye pros, these bass pros, we put just a separate battery in there just for the electronics, to run the electronics all day. That way it doesn't affect the bilge pumps, the live wells running, the radio, those things like that. The cranking battery won't start. Those things are all separated from a separate battery with a forward-facing sonar electronics these days.
They got to have enough power, and you got to have the transducer in the right spot. Just two things to keep in mind. Jason, always appreciate our conversations. I got a feeling you guys there at Linwood Beach are, if not real busy now, you're going to start getting swamped here in the next couple weeks, aren't you?
The swampness has already started, absolutely.
Better busy than bored, though, right?
Absolutely. Busy is always good, absolutely.
Hey, are you booking trips, your charters right now at senditcharters.com? Can we book
Absolutely.
a trip with you?
I'm running trips right now. I'll be running trips all the way through the end of July, and then I switch gears and start chasing salmon in August. But I have walleye charters, days open all the way through the end of July right now.
All right, Jason, appreciate your time. Captain Jason Graham of Send It Charters, senditcharters.com. He works out of Linwood Beach Marina, linwoodbeachmarina.com. We'll take a break. When we come back, Steve Windom of Outdoor Mentors with details on our new partnership for the third annual Mike Avery Outdoors charity golf outing to raise funds to get kids in the outdoors. I'm so excited about this. Friday, July 31st. Details coming up after the break with Steve Windom right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Sheboygan on Big Country Gold, WCBY, 1240 AM, 100.7 FM. You can hear us in Muskegon on WKBZ, 1090 AM, and north of the bridge in Marquette, WDMJ, 1320 AM. Mark your calendars now, Friday, July 31st, for the third annual Mike Avery Outdoors charity golf outing at the beautiful West Branch Country Club in beautiful West Branch. This is the third annual event, this time partnering with a new group. Now, when we came up with this idea a couple of years ago, I knew right from the start, if I'm going to get involved in a golf outing, funds raised are going to be used to encourage kids getting them outdoors. And the group I'm working with this year, Outdoor Mentors, Pass It On, is the perfect fit for this. Steve Windom, a guy who coincidentally I used to work with when he was at MUCC on the golf outing, has now partnered up with us for this year's event through Outdoor Mentors, and he's on the phone line now. Steve, welcome back. How are you?
Hey, Mike. Thanks for having me. I'm doing good. How are you?
I couldn't be more excited.
Me as well. I am so grateful and thankful, and Outdoor Mentors is so grateful to be working with you again. And as you said, all the funds raised are going to help us get more kids in the outdoors, hunting, fishing, trapping, shooting sports, and passing on that outdoor heritage that we all love.
And all the money we raise will stay right here in Michigan, correct?
Yeah, it'll be here for Michigan programming. We are trying to kick off Operation Longbeard right now. So any of the listeners that are interested in being a mentor and getting a kid out on their first turkey hunt, or maybe converting a waterfowler or deer hunter into a turkey chaser, we are looking for mentors right now. And, turkey season's right around the corner. So our programming is already going to start happening even before the outing raises funds.
Big news this week now, too. Our friends at Security Credit Union have agreed to come on board as a major sponsor of the event once again. What a blessing that is.
Yeah, that group is so great. Being our presenting sponsor again this year, helping us with, making sure we can have a quality event and supporting the mission. So more dollars go back to the cause. It's a great thing, and we are so grateful for Security Credit Union.
Can we sign up for the outing yet?
Steve, by the time this airs, I'm hoping to have that up and live. And so we are working as fast as we can, getting all the collateral and the registration forms and the website published. So on Saturday, and when this goes live, people who are hearing our voices should be able to go and outdoormentors.org, and then under the events tab. And so I don't have the specific URL yet, but just check out outdoormentors.org and under events.
Outdoormentors.org. And I happened to mention a week ago on Wednesday Night Live that we would be ready to sign up next week, and that kind of put you in a corner. So I apologize for that, but not really.
Well, it's good. I like the pressure, and I always want to, come through for you. And you made a couple of promises and wrote the checks, and I'll be sure to cash them.
It's good to have partners who think that way. Steve, I'm so excited about this. It's a proven concept now. The first year we did, it's like, is this going to work? It did. The second year we raised more money. So now it's a proven concept. We've got people who are looking forward to the event. The folks at the West Branch Country Club are wonderful. I couldn't be more excited about this. So it's Friday, July 31st at the West Branch Country Club. Go to outdoormentors.org under the events tab. And when this is up and running too, Steve, I will make sure to put a big splash and, put it on my Facebook page and all the other places as well. Outdoor Mentors is a group that was formed, if I remember right, in Kansas, but you have some very, very optimistic goals.
Yeah, actually, and I was just down in Wichita this past week. We had a big staff meeting and a strategy meeting to continue our growth. And so, we were founded out of a Big Brothers and Big Sisters program out of Wichita. Created our own nonprofit, and then we've since 2019 we have expanded into 7 states. We have 5 more on our list this year, including Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Idaho, Nebraska. And so this is a proven model that, it's not a one and done for these young people. It's from ages 10 to 22. So any age of young person can get in. They can come back and try as many different pursuits and, be repeat customers. If I take you mountain biking one time, you're probably not going to go buy a mountain bike. But if I take you numerous times and you really get into it and you really get hooked, you're going to start to invest and feel confident. And, our program helps with resiliency, responsibility, confidence, and it really builds great young people for the world through outdoor mentorship and, hunting, fishing, and trapping.
And again, if somebody wants to help out, be a mentor, take a kid hunting or fishing or shooting or trapping or mountain biking or whatever, how do they do it?
They go to outdoormentors.org, and on the mentor tab, there is a place you can sign up. We'll do a quick background check and get you started. Our program coordinators will be in touch, and we will work around your schedule. There's no obligation. You can do 1 hunt, 1 fishing trip a year. You can do 50 if you have time. And we also need land access. So any landowners out there that are passionate about the next generation, we're always looking for partnering with land access. We can give them tax receipts for the access they provide us, but we utilize public land, we utilize private land, and even some of the preserves that we work with too.
And Steve, we will see you at the Wednesday Night Live coming up at the Lumberjack Restaurant in West Branch on the 15th of April. If folks want to talk to you in person, they can do that. Outdoormentors.org, outdoormentors.org. Steve, looking forward to working with you on this year's golf outing. It's going to be a great event.
Me as well, Mike. Thank you so much.
All right, we'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show for the top of the hour. When we come back in hour number 2, Ed Retherford, Captain Ed Retherford, one of the longest running, working charter captains on the Great Lakes. Then Doug Deming talks about Sebewaing Harbor Marina and more in this week's Ask Avery segment. It's a twofer this week coming up in hour number 2.
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Yater Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons, The Forward Corporation, Security Credit Union, Offshore Tackle, Hammond Drives and Equipment, Garber Chevrolet, the West Branch Visitors Bureau, Rapid River Knife Works, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Indeed, this is the big guy, Mike Avery. Thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction. Yeah, the big guy. I noticed today when I was sitting in his chair in the studio that if I move just right, it squeaks and it rocks. And I'm thinking, well, a little guy wouldn't make it. Hear that, Charlie? So I can't move. Although, I mean, I'm not nearly as big as I used to be, so I'm pretty happy with that. So I guess I just won't move. And if you hear some squeaking or creaking in the background, hey, listen, if you know where the studio is, you want to drop off a new chair, we're not proud. We take one. Hey, Charlie, do a little trade. That's what radio is based on, is trades. Anyway, welcome to hour number 2 of this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show, heard on more than 30 radio stations across this great state of Michigan. And radio is the backbone of what this concept, this franchise, is all about. If we didn't have the radio stations, if we didn't have the radio show, I don't think the business model would work. So I do encourage you, if you can, to listen to the show on your local radio station, your local AM or FM station. If you live in some part of our state that you can't hear the show, or if your local station doesn't carry all 3 hours of the show, it is nice to know that there's a backup, and that is the podcast version of the Outdoor Magazine radio show. The content is exactly the same guests, same questions, same conversation, but you hear it somewhere other than on your local radio station. I put it on my website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. It's on my Facebook page as well, and it's on, probably all of the usual podcasting platforms, Amazon, Audible. It's on Twitter, too. TuneIn, Stitcher, Player, Deezer, Odyssey. It's even on YouTube. So wherever you hear your podcasts, you can hear the podcast version of the Outdoor Magazine radio show. I do like podcasting. Podcasting is huge these days. And I've been doing podcasts for a long, long time. These days, in addition to the podcast version of the radio show, I also do podcasts for Angler Quest Pontoons, Killer Food Plots, and Offshore Tackle. And when we're done here in the studio recording this week's radio show, we will record this month's Offshore Tackle podcast with the man himself, Mark Romanek of Fishing 411. So keep an ear out for that. Regardless of how you are hearing my voice, when you are hearing my voice, thank you. I do appreciate it. Have a blessed Easter weekend, by the way. I talked about my thoughts about Easter in the first hour of this week's show. There's a real meaning to celebrate this season, and it's much more than Easter baskets and the Easter bunny. But keep that in mind if you would, please. One of the advantages, and this is my 45th year in broadcasting, one of the advantages of being around for a long time is I get to meet a lot of interesting, very cool people. And right now I'm thinking about Captain Ed Retherford of Trout Scout Charters, TroutScoutCharters.com. I don't know if there's anybody who is a working captain on the lakes who has been doing it longer than Ed Retherford. And God willing, he will be out there again this year, chasing trout and salmon on northern Lake Huron. He's with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Ed, Cap, welcome back. How are you?
Good. How are you been, Mike?
I've been doing real good. I'm excited about springtime, excited about fishing, excited about turkey season. What's on your plate coming up, Ed?
Well, all of those. Okay, I'm in the same mode as you are. I'm sitting right by the lake right now because I told Charlie that basically we don't have a lot of service because of the storm we had last week, but the lake is opening up here, but it's a lot opener down where you're at. Okay.
You got another ice storm, didn't you?
Oh, big time. Worse than last year.
Are you serious?
Yeah. Worse than at our place.
Oh.
We have 2 places. We got one behind the Smith plant, in that area, and that really got it. So, I'm not going into that. But it was not good.
Mother Nature has not been kind to northern and upper Michigan the past couple of years.
No, it hasn't, and I don't know. With the St. Patty's Day, you should be out of Michigan at that time. Okay, I guess.
Yeah,
probably
I
not
think
a good tourist recommendation.
Ed, how did you get started in this charter business? And as long as I feel like, if I remember the story, I feel like you started the whole thing when you were a kid, didn't you?
Oh yes. Well, I grew up in a family that I've been on numerous times, but I grew up in the Thumb area, and I was very active in sports, but I loved the outdoors and I fished the Cass River when I was a little kid, and fished. My uncle built a break wall at Port Austin, and so my grandmother bought a trailer there, and so I was right with the locals at Port Austin on the dock fishing perch in the morning. They'd be asking me questions, even when I was like 8 or 9 years old. So it was ongoing, and then we had a place on the Asabo Mile, and I started fly fishing. I don't know, even when I was 8 or 10. At least I could wade in the water, so they put me out there fly fishing. So, and then of course, with the start of the fisheries, the Great Lakes fisheries, I was there when it started, so I was gung ho about that. And with my other background, I've been involved with hunting all my life too. So I've been on a number of committees with both sportsmen and the DNR. So I guess that's basically it. And if God's willing, in the next month or so, I'll be starting I started as a guide first, but it'll be my guide and chartering, 57 years
57.
Of taking, people out. But I started when I was like 8 years old. I'm not going to say how old I am, but let's put it this way. It's a little over 70 years. Okay.
Good for you.
That I did.
Wow.
Yeah,
wow. All right, some obvious questions then. First one, how has the fishery and fishing on the Great Lakes changed since you started?
Well, over the years, I got thinking about that. Over the years, it goes up and down. We have cycles, and there's things you got to adapt. And, I guess what I say to myself and to other people is I've been able to adapt to the fishery. The guys all call me the grumpy old man, but I don't think I'm that grumpy, but maybe I am. But anyways, it's where we used to catch them, you don't catch them anymore. You've got to adapt to where do you think they're going. And of course, that's changing daily and weekly as far as the currents and everything else. And of course, always the forage base of food.
You say you were there at the beginning. So are we talking like 66, 67, 68 Platte Bay and such? Did you see that? Were you part of that?
Oh yeah. I was I was on the east side, but we went over there. I just missed the storm. And then I played football in college. So that was my college years. I went to Olivet in 62 and graduated in 65. And, graduated from high school in 65 and went to Olivet and graduated from there in 69. So I was in high school from 62 to 65. So,
have you always been an east side guy? Did you ever work over on the west side of the state, Lake Michigan?
No, I've been over there and run trips with other captains that I knew, went on their boats and worked with them a little bit. And both my boys are charter captains, and my daughter's an avid fisher person. She fishes the walleye tournaments and fishes basically all over the world. She's able to do that. So, and then Philip's out of Grand Haven and catch a bunch. And then my son Paul, he's in Petoskey, but he has his license in escrow. But he's my youngest son, and he's been doing it probably longer than most of the captains in Michigan. Also, he started when he was 19. So,
do you feel like, as an East Side guy, as a Lake Huron guy, do you feel like the emphasis is always on Lake Michigan, the Lake Michigan fishery, and the Lake Huron fishery is secondary?
Well, I have. Okay, it's their tourist associations were very active, which was great.
Is that what it is? Is that what made the difference?
Back in the day, because I was a member of the first grouping of the, it was called the Lake Huron Tourist Association out of Bay City, but that was actually the only tourist association. and that's where a lot of my advertising came from at that time period. And Lake Michigan had them all over. I mean, they had the main one, but then each individual city had them. And of course, the other thing is that geographically they have the big rivers. We only have 2 or 3 rivers that are substantial rivers on this side.
Hang tight, Ed. I got to take a break. We'll come back and talk more. We're talking with Captain Ed Retherford of Trout Scout Charters, the website troutscoutcharters.com. That's troutscoutcharters.com. The guy's been out there on the lakes forever. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Houghton Lake on 98.5 WUPS. You can hear us in Lansing on WILS 1320 AM. And you can hear us in Marquette. No, I'm sorry, in Iron Mountain. Well, you can hear us in Marquette, too. But you can hear us in Iron Mountain on WMIQ 1450 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by Rapid River Knives. What's that sound again? Rapid River Knives. In fact, I'll be honest, here during the break, I was just using my Rapid River knife. Charlie, look at that. You can see it. I was using my Rapid River knife to cut slices off an apple that I was eating here during the break. Now, it's never a good idea to eat something during the break, but it looks so good and I just couldn't resist. Anyway, Rapid River knives, handmade by craftsmen in Michigan's Upper Peninsula, guaranteed for life. Stop by their showroom on US 2 just east of Rapid River. You get a chance to see all the different types of knives they make. If you're lucky, you can see the folks of making knives. You can buy a knife, have it engraved, I think, while you stand there, while you wait. If you can't make it to the showroom, go to the website, rapidriverknifeworks.com. That's rapidriverknifeworks.com. Handmade by craftsmen in Michigan's Upper Peninsula and guaranteed for life. rapidriverknifeworks.com. Right now, talking with Captain Ed Retherford of Trout Scout Charters, troutscoutcharters.com. Ed has been around the fishing industry his entire life. He's been a working charter captain, fishing guide for almost 60 years now. Ed, a lot of things I'd like to talk to you about, but let me ask you about this because I've had a couple emails here in the last week. People asking about smelt. Do we see a smelt run on the east side of the state anymore? And have you heard any reports of anything going on?
No, I was just thinking about that on the way out. Normally, I'm talking about in the Alpena area, anywhere between 15th to 25th of April was always the heavy smelt run out of the in the Thunder Bay River, and then in the last few years they've actually run up the river in the winter, and they have caught some. They're not spawning, but they're in there, and they've caught some through the ice. Well, this year we didn't have any ice in the river because of the high water from the dam, because we still have an operating dam here. And nobody was able to. We've talked about it, and the guys that are fishing haven't really seen them. And they run the shoreline now. I know guys that have dipped them over the past few years. I don't think the Singing Bridge gets that big of a run, or if it is, it's very small, but a short time period. But we see them. I see them in the bellies of the fish. There's I've got all sorts of photos with smelt in the fish's in the fish's stomachs, and just that they don't run the stream.
Yeah.
They sort of change their habits also, along with a lot of the other fish.
Man, springtime smelt dipping off Singing Bridge, that used to be, that was huge.
Oh, that was unbelievable. Well, anywhere on the east side, you go all the way from the Detroit area, all the way, now I think they still get them up in the Carp River area and that, which is on our side. But as far as from all the way to Sheboygan, I don't think there's any river runs that many.
If I remember right, Ed, you first became known, or at least you first became known to me, as a master brown trout angler. And I think for a lot of years, that's really, that's what you were. You were the trout guy. Does that fishery still exist, or at least like it used to years ago?
No, and we've talked about this before on the show. I know if nobody's listened, and that was what I built a lot of different ideas and a lot of theories. And of course, I am a biologist, a zoologist, and I taught ichthyology. So I knew a lot of the different habits to begin with. But over the years, of course, they stopped planting them because they weren't getting a return. They weren't keeping them in the hatchery long enough for them to develop. And of course, the cormorants, we can go on, a whole show on the cormorants. But so what they've allowed Alpena to do is we have a gentleman south of Alpena that they actually buy browns and plant them because the brown trout fishery, I got awarded a plaque for over 50 years fishing in every one of the brown trout festivals this last summer. So anyways, that there are some, but it's like, my gosh, we caught a brown trout, and they do plant some in the Whitney drain way up. So that's what I've been trying to get them to do in northern Michigan, and they won't do it. The DNR won't put them in one of our streams way up and see what happens. But I'm still working on that, and a group of us, not just me, but I'm sort of the spokesman.
So what are folks fishing for these days? I know the salmon fishery, the kings aren't like they are on the west side of the state. Is it Atlantics? Is it Lakers or what? Well,
that's what I'm saying now is that, I've been a survivor. I've gone through all the different phases of the fishery. And over the years, what I say now is that we catch a mixed bag. I mean, our catches, going from like May, because we don't get out a lot in April up here just because of the ice. But, and I'm getting calls already about, can we come in the middle of May? And I go, absolutely not unless something changes drastically. But anyways, so we can catch up to 6 or 7 different species on one trip, and our stable is lake trout to begin with, but during the catch they've been putting cohos back in here because they feed on insects and they don't rely on they feed on insects and other types of forage, fish forage, and kings are pretty well right. Their forage is alewives, although you find a few other things in them. But, if the alewives aren't around, the kings aren't around. So there's a certain time period for them here, and they do come through, but you have to be here. Now, I'll give one last shot. Last year was a disaster in July with the weather. I'm north of Alpena then in Presqu'île, and I mean, we had winds, northwest winds every day up there. And I mean, that's like shipwreck. That's like 5 to 8 foot waves every day, and that's, you can't take customers in that.
You talk about lake trout. Are your lake trout these days, do they have that nice pink reddish flesh like lake trout around the rest of the lakes, or are they still? When I used to fish lakers on Lake Michigan, they were a whiter meat, they were oilier, but I hear that's changed these days. Have yours as well?
Oh yeah, and actually ours changed before anybody else's. I mean, they almost look. The neighbor, and I've told this story before with you, but the neighbor ladies, they all wanted salmon, because in the stores, there's salmon, salmon in the restaurants and all that. So, they'll probably shoot me if one of them ever listens to this. But I'd give them lake trout, and they go, "Oh, that salmon you gave us was just delicious," and I go, "Yep, it sure is, isn't it?" And we'd laugh about it, and and I put, the photos on Facebook, and people can't tell the difference, once you do that. But, and that's, I'm not doing the stomach samples anymore, but I would say that's probably from the invasive gobies being here. I think that's changed the whole texture. Plus the lake trout are a river spawning lake trout that they started to plant back in the day, and if I think they've kept that up, or they've used those in their hatcheries, so that's changed the idea of the oily fish.
Ed, could a young person get started in the fishing industry these days and do what you have done, have the success and the longevity that you have? Could they do that these days?
Well, I think they'd have to change. They can't just go after one species. And again, things have changed in your area, because the walleye fishing is unbelievable, and a lot of the kids, that's what they do because you can catch them. Not being a smart aleck, but if there's something there and they want to catch them, they can do that. And a lot of them have adapted to that. I don't know if they can, everything, the whole industry's changed, because we used to be represented by a lot of the manufacturers. And your sponsors, are also my sponsors, a lot of them. And the same deal, every time somebody becomes a captain, they think they're going to get sponsored by everybody in the world, and that's not going to happen anymore.
Yeah, and there are, the fisheries changed, the way we promote companies has changed, but you at Retherford have been able to stay at it for so many years. So I give you my hats off to you. I mean, you're a very impressive guy, and you've been in the forefront of fishing here in Michigan for a long time. So congrats to you.
Well, thank you, and say hi to Mark and Bruce. I laugh, but Bruce and I started out. He's an old Port Austin guy, and I was from Cass City, so I'm probably maybe a little bit older than him. We might all be the same age, but pretty close. Okay.
All right. Hey, listen, I want to talk to you off the air real quick, Ed. So hang tight during the break here.
Sure.
Captain Ed Retherford of Trout Scout Charters. His website, TroutScoutCharters.com. TroutScoutCharters.com. He's still booking trips. Book him for a Northern Lake Huron trip. Maybe it's an Atlantic. Maybe it's the Rare King. Maybe it's a Steelhead. Maybe it's a walleye. Probably a Laker. But you're going to have fun, and you're going to listen to a lot of great stories, because Ed is he's one of the good guys, and he's been at it for a long, long time. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine Show. When we come back, another one of the good guys, Doug Deming. I first met Doug when he was working out of the Fish Point Lodge, when he owned the Fish Point Lodge on the east side of Saginaw Bay. These days, he's working with the folks in Sebewaing Harbor Marina, SebewaingHarborMarina.com. I want to talk to him about what he's doing these days and why he's so active in the marina there. And then in our third hour, Jeania Canel of Jay's Sporting Goods talks turkey guns and patterning and more. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine Show in Holland on WHTC. That's 1450 AM, 99.7 FM. You can hear us in Sandusky on WMIC, 660 AM, 95.3 FM. And you can hear us north of the bridge in Newberry, WNBY, 1450 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by Killer Food Plots. It's getting to be that time of year, time when you're going to be turning some dirt, putting some seeds in the ground, and getting your food plot looking great for the upcoming season. If you're going to go through all that work, all that expense, why not work with a company to maximize your chances of success? Michigan-based family-owned Killer Food Plots. Rich Krazan does a wonderful job. Get a soil sample. See where your soil is, see where you want it to go, what seeds you should put in the ground. Go to the website, killerfoodplots.com, killerfoodplots.com. And Rich and his wife, Ellie, will be joining us at the next Wednesday Night Live at the Lumberjack coming up on the 15th. So if you join us, you can get a chance to talk to him as well. 989-343-0892 for reservations. Right now, though, I want to talk with a guy who I've known for a long, long time. His name is Doug Deming. I first met Doug and his wife, Chris, when they were owners of the Fish Point Lodge. We duck hunted out of there. Not that I'm much of a duck hunter, but I did go duck hunting out of there. Fished out of there, bow fished out of there. These days, though, Doug has moved on, and I wanted to get him on the phone to talk more about that. Doug, welcome back. How have you been, buddy?
Good. How are you? Welcome.
I couldn't be better. I couldn't be better.
Good.
What are you doing with your time these days, Doug?
Well, sitting on a board that we got a marina in Sebewaing that we're working on. And we advertised last year with you, which turned out really great, And I don't think there's a lot of people know that on the east side that there is a real nice marina and bait shop and all those kind of things that go along with that.
And then, of course, we're talking about the Sebewaing Harbor Marina, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. You can duck hunt out of that. You can fish. There's a lot of fishing opportunities. And especially this last year, there's been a lot of tournaments for bass, which is a big deal. And so, and the DNR have been helping us try to get some grants to because it's 27 years old, actually, the docks. I mean, they're all still in good shape, but we got to prepare for the future,
Well, that east side of Saginaw Bay is a real gem and sometimes an overlooked gem, I think.
Oh, absolutely. Now I'm going to use the word skinny water.
Oh, thank you so very much.
I knew that'd make you smile.
It is. I am.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of people, I always said, and especially now this year with the price of gas, hopefully it goes down, but you can find water or fish in real shallow water, even especially this time of year, that's for sure.
So what are we going to find there, Doug, at the Sebewaing Harbor Marina? It's a pretty unique facility and kind of got, I think, everything that an angler or duck hunter could want.
Yeah, it is, because right now, for an example, they've been perch fishing or trying to perch fish. This rain didn't really help, but they can fish off the docks and fish off the other places that are there, and it's being utilized a lot during the summer and even wintertime. Even ice fishing for spearing and that kind of thing. So. It's just it needs new lighting. It needs new asphalt. It's time for renovation, and so there's a board of 6 of us that got asked to donate some time and to see if we could make things a little bit nicer. And so that's what we've been doing, basically.
You're the perfect guy to serve on that board, though, because you've been a proponent and a promoter of that east side of the bay for many, many years. When I look at what you've got there, you've got a boat launch, you've got a ship store, you got seasonal docks, you got a fish cleaning station. I mean, yeah, you want to make sure that the facility is in good shape and for years to come, but you got a lot going right there.
Yeah, there is a lot, and we've got a lot of volunteer and a little shout out to the Waterways Commission. They helped us get through a grant for an engineered study, and that's a big deal to get the train in motion. And then we want to do this in stages because after looking at paperwork, you're looking at over $4 million renovation.
Man,
I know that's you wonder really, but and it does work out. If you take little chunks instead of big bites, you eventually achieve your goal. That's how I look at it.
It's like eating an elephant, right?
Yeah. I'm not sure I want to try, but
How do you eat an elephant? One little bite at a time, just like taking care of the
little
marina.
bite at
there.
a time. Right.
All right. So
Right.
listen, if folks are fishing the east side of the bay, I would strongly encourage them to check out you guys, Sebewaing Harbor Marina. The website, SebewaingHarborMarina.com, SebewaingHarborMarina.com. Thank you, Doug Deming. We'll be in touch. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show. When we come back, this week's Ask Avery segment, and it's a twofer. One of them is about deer killed by cars. The other one is about, what is it about? Oh, selling of forest land. Where does that money go? Well, I've got answers to both after the break right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Houghton Lake on the Twister, 92.1 WTWS. You can hear us in Ludington on News 97.98, 98.7 WLDN. And you can hear us north of the ridge in Escanaba, the Riviera of the North, WCHT, 600 AM, 93.5 FM. The Ask Avery segment is brought to you each week by the good folks at Security Credit Union. Security Credit Union loves to work with outdoorsmen and women, and they can help you with your next outdoor adventure. Check them out online at securitycu.org. That's securitycu.org. And again, a big thank you to the Security Credit Union Foundation for becoming the presenting sponsor of our third annual Mike Avery Outdoors charity golf outing. Thank you for that. I do appreciate it. The way the Ask Avery segment works, you can send me a question that you want me to answer directly or you want me to pass along to somebody else. The best way to get those questions to me is to send me an email to Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com. That's Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com. This week, a twofer. First one from Ben Walton. Ben sent me an email to Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com. He says, Mike, I live out in the middle of nowhere and quite often see dead deer on the side of the road as a result of a vehicle deer crash. I was wondering what legal responsibility we have when hitting a deer. Does it depend on whether vehicle damage is done, the deer manages to get up and leave, or it appears to succumb to its injuries? I know the kill is very recent. If I know the kill is very recent and cool weather permits, what would the process be to claim the deer for myself? Does the process differ if I hit it myself or if I find the deer? Thank you, Mike. My wife and I listen to your broadcast on Alpena Radio every week. See, he gets it. All right. So, Ben, to answer your question, the first part about what legal responsibility do you have, I just realized that I didn't get an answer to that. I think if you can drive away, you just drive away, but that's just me. All right. This is the answer from Sergeant Mike Mashar. Any deer hit by a vehicle can be salvaged. First priority goes to the driver, and if they don't want it, anyone can claim it. You would need to contact any local law enforcement department or the RAP line, which is 800-292-7800, or the RAP line, and ask for a salvage permit before taking it home. So if you want to do it right, you've got to get a salvage permit, but you can get those from any law enforcement agency. Okay? That one's pretty clean, pretty simple. The second one, much more involved. This one comes from, the email return address says Lynn Matthew Lovejoy. So I don't, it's Lynn and Matthew Lovejoy. So I don't know if it's Matthew who sent this or not, but a real quick question. Where does the money go from the logging on state land? That's an interesting question with not an easy answer. Where does the money go from logging on state land? I reached out to Ed Golder, who is the DNR's chief public information officer. He says timber sales, and here's the way he starts out. Hey, Mike, longer answer than you want, but there's some nuance here I didn't want to miss. Okay, Ed's answer. Timber sale revenue from state-managed public forests is deposited into restricted funds based on how the harvested land was acquired. Revenue from land that the state acquired due to tax reversion or purchased using non-fish and game sources goes into the Forest Development Fund. That fund is then used to manage and protect the state-managed public forest system, including forest management, tree planting, wildfire protection, and forest health. Okay, revenue from land that was purchased using state game and fish or federal funding, like Pittman, Robertson, or Dingle Johnson, are deposited into the Game and Fish Fund. That fund is established and used for the management, protection, and research of wildlife and fish resources. The use of the Forest Development Fund and Game and Fish Fund is determined by the annual budget process and is appropriated by the legislature. One final point, no timber sale revenue from state-managed public forests is directed to park or trail construction or maintenance. I told you that one was a little more convoluted, but there is your answer, and you might want to play that one back and listen to it again. I'm not going to go through it all again, but Ed Golder, thank you for that answer on that. Matthew Lovejoy, thank you for reaching out with a question. And also Ben Walton for that first question, asking about the deer kills. And I joke that Ben says, hey, we listen to one of your broadcasts. He listens to WATZ out of Alpena. I know nobody else cares about this, and I'm actually convincing myself to care less and less. I guess it really doesn't matter whether you hear me as, on the broadcast stations or as a podcast. As long as you hear the show, I guess that's all that matters. I will say this, though, and I always encourage this. Please, if you can, listen to the broadcast stations. The radio stations are what this is all about, and without the radio stations, it would make it very hard to make a go of it. Okay, by the way, my website is MikeAveryOutdoors.com. My email address, as I mentioned earlier, is Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com, Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. I would love to hear from you. Let me know what's on your mind, what you like, what you don't like, what you're sick of hearing about, what you want to hear more about. We'll take a break now for the top of the hour. Coming back in hour number 3. Yes, this is a 3-hour show. Coming back in hour number 3, Jeania Canel from Jay's Sporting Goods. She's the manager of the gun department at Jay's Clare store. I want to talk with Jeania about several topics, primarily turkey guns, what makes a good turkey gun these days, turkey ammo, and the very important process of patterning a turkey shotgun. Now, turkey ammo is very, very expensive, so I realize you don't want to spend a bunch of money shooting into targets, but you pretty much have to. And that if you want to be successful. And then we'll wrap it all up with wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar. That's coming up in hour 3 of this week's Outdoor Magazine.
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Yater Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons, The Forward Corporation, Security Credit Union, Offshore Tackle, Hammond Drives and Equipment, Garber Chevrolet, the West Branch Visitors Bureau, Rapid River Knife Works, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Well, thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction. People always say, man, I want to meet Ken Hunter. Well, I personally haven't seen Ken for years. Everything we do these days is electronically. I send him an email, he sends me the file back. Now, if you want to see the people I work with, like Charlie, he's in the studio with me this week. Jonathan Dent was in here earlier. Those are guys you can see. In fact, go to the website, WSGW.com, and you can see what these guys look like. I just happen to record the show each week at WSGW, but I really value all of my broadcast affiliates. I mean that so very much. I also truly value my advertising partners that I've worked with forever. Last week I had Chad Stearns here on the show from Jay's Sporting Goods, and I was talking about how my relationship with Jay started, so I won't go into that this week, but just know that I have much respect for the folks at Jay's and what they've accomplished, what they've created. I mean, from a dream to outdoor superstores, competing with these big corporate conglomerates. Jay's has stores in Clare and Gaylord. If you go to the Claire store and you go back to the gun department, if you're very lucky, you could run into Jeania Canel. Jeania is the manager of the gun department there in Claire. She's been doing it for many, many years. She's very well respected. Everybody knows her, and she knows just about everything there is to know about guns. And if she doesn't know the answer, she's got guys there in the department that she can ask. But I'm going to keep all of my questions to a level where Jeania's just going to, boom, answer them right off the top of her head. And she's with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Jeania, welcome back. How have you been?
Thank you. I've been good.
So how is life at Jay's these days back in the gun department? Are you busy this time of year, Jeania, or is it a little lull right now?
We're in a little lull, but I think we're in a little better place than we have been maybe last year. It just seems like foot traffic's heavier during the week, which is nice because then the weekends you're able to keep up with the busier time and get the customers taken care of quicker. So, yeah, it's been good, Mike.
When we talked a few years ago, unfortunately, the gist of our conversation was about the lack of product and lack of availability. That's not the case anymore, is it?
No. There's going to be a few SKUs of things, typically in your reloading area or in the ammo department, but it's way better than it was, many years ago. I think we're well set.
When people come back to the gun department, is it a mix of personal defense, home defense, and hunting guns? Do you sell one more than the other?
Depends on the time of year. Like right now, we see a lot of rifles going out, a lot of people doing the suppressor thing, so that keeps us hopping in itself. My guys are good at knowing, talking to customers when it comes to what type of gun they're buying, if they're buying threaded, suggesting that suppressor so they're aware of that and what it takes to get one. But everything, really. I mean, you got 22 shoots going right now at some of the local clubs. You got sporting clays with the school events going on. So we do a wide variety throughout the year. I wouldn't say we're heavy on one side or the other right now.
I'm actually glad you brought up suppressors. That's a topic we should touch on real briefly before we get to turkey guns. There was hope that with the beginning of the year, everything, with the timeline and everything would be streamlined. Are you actually seeing that, Jeania?
It's much better than it was when they first did away with the charging of the tax stamp. So we're typically on an approval, you're 7 to 14 days out at most. I mean, some people may linger just because of their background check, whatever's on that, but it's going very smooth, I think.
And if I remember real quick the basics on this, you've got to be 21 and that it has to be, licensed or registered? Even though there's no tax stamp, you've still got to go through a process, correct?
Yeah. There's still the process of doing your Form 4 and being approved by the ATF. Yep, they just did away with the price of the tax stamp, but there is still a stamp on your Form 4 when it comes back.
And is the suppressor licensed to an individual or to a specific gun?
Individual, because you can switch it on and off from different guns that it would fit, so you don't have to keep it on one gun. If you have multiple guns that one suppressor would fit on, you can move it back and forth. So it's specific to a person, and then you can do a trust, and that's more than one person. But each person has to go through that process, just like the individual does.
Do they all screw on, or is there a bayonet-style mount?
No, they screw on, or you can put an attachment onto your firearm that makes them quick detachable, so you can move them from one gun to another. And
last question on suppressors. Is there a multi-cal? In fact, I know there is because mine, I think, is a 450 multi-cal, which allows me to use for a 450 and pretty much anything smaller.
Correct. Yep.
So why not just get a big multi-cal and use it for everything?
Some people do, but some people like to have more than one because they don't like taking it off of one gun onto another once they've got them on there. So we have many return customers for suppressors.
I bet they're so hot these days. And I lied when I said last question. Did the price come down? I'm seeing some prices now. I think, was it GSL or somebody came out with like a $400 or $500 can?
Yeah, I mean, it didn't doing away with the price of the tax stamp didn't drive the manufacturers to increase the price of the can itself. There's nothing on that play. But Lyman actually came out with one that's really cheap right now, inexpensive, and my guys have gotten some. They haven't got their tax stamps back on them, so they're a little disappointed they haven't been out to play with them yet. But we're curious to see how those come into play because they are relatively inexpensive, but they seem to be a well-made can. So we're just kind of waiting on a report back on those from some of the users. But
so
yeah, the price is not.
What are we talking on those Lymans, roughly?
Depends on what you get, but they're between $300 and $500.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's going to get some people excited for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, yep. Turkey guns. Setting the stage here, if somebody's new to turkey hunting, I feel like you could take just about whatever shotgun you have at the house and make it a suitable gun for the first season or two if you wanted to. Or is that an overstatement?
No, you're very correct on that. Really, the thing that you just need to really have the correct thing is the choke. And as long as you have a barrel that is, a full choke or extra full fixed, you're good. Or if you have a barrel with interchangeable chokes, you can go out and buy chokes that will accommodate the turkey.
So is a full choke adequate, or do we have to, preferably if we can, get a turkey choke? And is a turkey choke tighter than a full choke? Yeah,
so a full choke will work. That's what we always used before anything else came out, with all the special names now that they have for some of them, the exterminator and all of those, they have special names for them. But so really you want to have a tight pattern. So you're full in a standard barrel, standard choke is a full, what you get with your firearm, so to speak. If you're going to get more than one choke tube, then you can go into your extra fulls. Then you can go into what they call, the turkey tube. Those will extend out the end of the barrel. So yes, full is what you want to use, but you also have to understand when you pattern your gun, it might not want to shoot an extra full. It might not want to shoot one of the, aftermarket ones that are specifically designed for turkey. So your gun, your ammo, and the choke is going to determine really what you're going to want to use for patterning and what's going to get you the most shots in such of a small area.
Yeah, and I certainly want to talk more about the process of patterning here coming up in a couple of minutes. I'm thinking about, okay, say you've got a goose gun. A goose gun, in my mind, traditionally is going to have a real long barrel. Maybe not ideal for the turkey woods. Maybe, if you could design a perfect turkey shotgun, I suspect it would have a shorter barrel.
Yeah, turkeys have such good eyesight, so that is, the key in that, as well as, if you can get a specific turkey gun, there's things you're going to want to watch for, and that's the type of sights that are on it. Most people go with a high-vis sight. They go with a 20 to 24-inch barrel, and then a gun that's suitable for either choke tubes or has a full barrel on it already that doesn't have interchangeable tubes. But yes, turkeys have great eyesight, so you want to watch your movement when you're out there.
Can you over-choke a turkey gun, make the shot string so constricted that it actually spreads out?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
I've not heard of that happening, but, like I said, we'll talk about patterning, and there's, the key is really to find out what ammo and what choke your gun likes.
Well, Jeania, hang tight. We got to take a break, but I will tell you this. If you haven't heard of it, it doesn't exist because you've been around the world of guns and shooting for a long, long time. We're talking with Jeania Canel of Jay's Sporting Goods. The website for Jay's, jaysportinggoods.com. That's jaysportinggoods.com. 2 stores, Clare and Gaylord. Jeania is the manager of the gun department at their Clare store, the original outdoor superstore. We'll take a break. When we come back, more on this concept of turkey guns. How do you make your existing gun into a turkey gun? If you're going to buy a new turkey gun, what are you looking for? And then the topic of ammo. Man, you can spend some money on turkey loads these days, but maybe it's worth it. We'll find out from Jeania after the break right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Manistee on WMLQ 97.7 FM, and you can hear us in Tawas, WIOS 1480 AM 106.9 FM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by the Linwood Beach Marina and Campground. Linwood Beach can be your year-round Saginaw Bay fishing destination and your mid-Michigan Angler Quest headquarters. Check them out online at linwoodbeachmarina.com. That's linwoodbeachmarina.com. I had Captain Jason Graham of Send Charters and Linwood Beach Marina on in the first hour of the show to talk about getting your boat ready for the water. So check that out, and check out the folks at Linwood Beach Marina. Again, the website, linwoodbeachmarina.com, linwoodbeachmarina.com. While you are online, my website, mikeaveryoutdoors.com, and then head on over to jayssportinggoods.com. That, of course, is the website of Jay's Sporting Goods, Michigan's original family-owned outdoor superstore. Jeania Canel is the manager of the gun department at Jay's Clare store. She's with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Jeania, in your years in the business, how has the business of guns changed? How has the type of guns, the quality of guns, what have you seen evolve over the years?
I think one of the biggest things that I've seen is there's not a lot of the nice-looking wood stocks with the fancy grain. Manufacturers have kind of moved away from that unless if they're making a special build of something. And we have people that just love that. Like, that's what they collect. So that's been a change. And the other thing that I really struggle with, because, you get older, you have a little less memory, and is all of the calibers. It's like, do we really need that to, harvest a whitetail, to go elk hunting? Do we, so that's a big change as well, is just all the different calibers, getting away from your standard .6 and 270 and, 30-30. And then I get some of it, with the straight wall cartridges, there was a need there. And so they came out with it. But man, there's just a lot of cartridges that I just don't have any understanding of, or I don't know that I really want to, other than just servicing the customers.
Right.
But, and with the suppressors, that will take some of the recoil out of them. And so, they are easier to handle and stuff. But I think those are the two things that I've really noticed in the industry that's changed since I started here.
Well, and when you talk about all these different calibers, because the manufacturers create a demand for these, your customers walk in the door and they want them, so you've got to have the product. You've got to stock the shelves with them.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. Yeah, you got to have at least one. It's not like we're going to carry, every caliber or that caliber in every manufacturer that offers it, but we're at least going to have something in a caliber that we feel that's going to do well. We've seen some that have come out and, they really never hit the shelves. They're talked about in magazines, but they never hit the shelves. Or you see them that come out and they just don't last long, So they definitely have to have their time in the field and get people behind them so that people want to buy them, and then they'll stay, as part of what we sell. But you don't always see that either.
Sure. You were talking earlier about taking your standard shotgun, whatever you have at the house, turning it into a turkey gun. You mentioned chokes, but also sights, and I kind of cut you off there a little bit. Let's talk more about that. Are you talking these like an excess sight I have on my personal protection handguns, or what are we talking about, Jeania?
I'm talking about like true glow sights that I have some on my Benelli shotgun, and they just clamp on the rib. There's no gunsmithing required, nothing. They just have a set screw and they clamp down around it. Those are super nice, and they just give you a little better vision of the end of your barrel, so that because sometimes it's just a plain silver or copper sight on the end. Sometimes it might have a white sight, and people want a little bit of color out there. So you can do that, and you can also do some of the True Glow red dots.
Red dots, okay, yeah.
Like that. So, yeah, and those, you want to try to keep that stuff low profile, and some of that stuff gets a little big on there, but it just helps you pick up your target a little bit quicker. Used to be a turkey gun was always a 12 gauge. I think we have some other options these days, though, don't we? Yeah, oh, absolutely. 410. I was looking out on the shelf the other day just to see what we had and stuff, and there's some single shot 410 Stevenses out there that are fully camoed, ready to go for turkey, you know. And people might say that's a little light, but again, if you get the right ammo and you spend time behind your gun and you pattern it, you know, they work well. So, you know, 20 gauge, those are good too. So there's a lot of options out there now, more so than there used to be.
All right, you've mentioned this a couple of times. I've got to follow up on it. You said the right ammo, the right ammo. How do we get the right ammo for our turkey gun?
Well, what you want to do is we sell these really neat targets that are a turkey head, and it comes right down just below the beard of the turkey. And so what we recommend is that, especially if you're new to this and your gun is new, you haven't spent time behind it, and it can get expensive to do this, but trust me, it works, is don't go out and buy 4 boxes of the same ammo and think this is what you're going to use. We suggest that you try 1 or 2 types of ammo, full choke, extra full choke, and shoot at the target 35, 40 yards away and see where the BBs land. That's what you're looking for. You're looking for how many BBs are in a specific spot that you're shooting at. If you have BBs that are spread out throughout the whole target, you need to adjust that. You need to maybe go to a different choke tube, maybe do some different ammo, and then, you know, you shoot again. So what you're doing is you're seeing, when you're shooting, how many BBs you can get, you know, in that head area, in that area just where the neck meets the chest. You're looking for a tight pattern when it comes to turkey hunting.
And again, what determines that? The choke tube and the ammo, a combination of?
Yes. Most often you'll find that it's a combination of both.
You said, I think you said 35-ish, 40 yards-ish. I mean, what do you consider is the maximum range on these turkey loads these days?
It probably would determine, Mike, if you're using 3-inch, 3.5 inch. 3.5 inch, you know, is a little excessive for turkeys, but some people do want to use that. But, you know, or you're using 2 3/4. So depending on what length of shell you're using, how many BBs are in there, that kind of thing, the amount of powder, you know, you could poke out there a little farther than the, you know, the 30, 35, 40, 50 yards,
wow.
You know.
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't shoot over, you know, over 50, but I'm sure there are people that do it, and that's just because they're comfortable with what they have, you know.
Well, and if you've spent time on the range and you've patterned your gun and you know what it'll do, that's not necessarily a bad shot.
No, not at all. No, you just want to, obviously in all cases you're wanting to try to harvest what you're shooting at and not wound something. But yep.
So what makes turkey loads different? How are they different than, say, you know, a rabbit load or even a waterfowl load? What is the difference? What are they made out of? What are the help me explain that, Jeania.
Well, for example, like the tungsten, you know, that's a type of ammo that hits harder and carries energy longer. So people do lean toward that. But like I said, you know, your 3-inch loads, how much dram is it at what type of energy that, you know, that load is going to carry, because you want something that's going to hit, you know, you don't want to be out there really with a target load that you're going to be shooting sporting clays with. You want something that's going to hit harder and carry energy better. So, and that's why, you know, tungsten is one of the favored ones. But with that being said, you know, here's the thing: that's over $120 a box this year. So are people going to go out there with tungsten? You know, some people will, because they know that that's what they're going to shoot. You know, so
yeah. Wow.
You know, but
wow. Mm-hmm. You know, what you're saying in theory makes complete sense. You know, get yourself some different types of ammo. But then when I hear like $120 a box, but that's the high end, right? That's the premium grade.
Absolutely. Wow. Yeah, and that's your diehard turkey hunter. That's what they live and breathe. You know, and maybe they're going into a different state to do it, and they're after the, you know, the whatever they call
the Grand Slam.
The Grand Slam.
Slam or the World
so
Slam.
They're going to spend that because they know that's what it's going to do. They know what that ammo is capable of, you know. So, but no, that is not a starting price on ammo. You're, you know, probably in the $20, $30 range, depending on what you're looking for. But like I said, you want something that's going to be compatible for turkey hunting, and there's several loads out there, but you definitely, would want to watch going out there with just a load that's a light load that you're going to be using for, sporting clays. That's not what you're going to typically want to use for turkeys.
I remember several years ago when I first started turkey hunting, I was out there with my Ruger Red Label, and I had a full choke in it. And I called a bird in, and I got him to what I thought was a real good range, shot him, and it just rolled him over. I mean, it just rolled him over, and he got up and ran away. And it made me so mad. I got in my truck, and I went right to Jay's, and I got myself a very inexpensive Mossberg 835 Ultimag that I now use for everything. Put a turkey choke on that thing, and I've had no problems since then. But I got to believe I'm not the only person who's gone through that type of an experience before.
Oh, I'm sure not. No, and do you in yours? Are you 3.5 inch, or are you doing 3?
Threes
On the 835.
Yeah, threes.
Yeah. No, you're not. You're not the only person that does that. But turkeys have thick skin, a lot of feathers to go through. So that's why I say, there's a certain spot that you're really looking to hit.
Going back to 3s or 3.5, Jeania, I think I'm too old to punish myself with 3.5 inch shells these days.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. My guys, when I started turkey hunting, one of the guys that worked here, he's like, "Here, try these." And I'm like, "Okay." I said, "What's the difference?" And I don't remember now what the little jargon on the box was. If it was, I don't remember exactly. But man, oh man, I tell you what, I shot that and I was like, "Holy cow!" And then I come back and told them, and they laughed, and and it was a heavier load, is what it was. Like, you guys are stinkers, but yeah.
That was just a little trick they played on the boss, yeah.
That's right. Well, I asked for their help. I was going turkey hunting, so I asked them to suggest something, so they did.
Next time a schedule comes out, see who's working weekend nights, right?
Right, yep. We've got a cleaning department.
Jeania, I always enjoy our conversations. You're a wealth of information, and you're a really great person. So thanks for joining us. I would encourage people to go to Jay's Sporting Goods, either the Clare or Gaylord store. If you go to Clare, you probably won't see Jeania out front unless you're really lucky, because she's a busy, busy person. They also go to the website, jsportinggoods.com, jsportinggoods.com. Thank you, Jeania, for your time. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show. When we come back, a few more thoughts, and we'll wrap it all up with wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Traverse City on WTCM 580 AM. And you can hear us in Saginaw on WSGW 790 AM 100.5 FM. I'm in the studios of WSGW right now, as I am each week for this 3 hours. I call this corner of the building the Outdoor Magazine studio, and most weeks I'm able to get away with it. This weekend here with Charlie Rood. You know Charlie. Charlie's very, he doesn't like to brag about himself. But if you could see the crowds of people that routinely show up here to wait for Charlie to leave the studio, leave the station, and they chant Charlie, Charlie. It's really a very emotional experience to watch this happen and to realize he has such adoring fans. And Charlie, I also appreciate the work you do, so thank you so very, very much. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Reader Landscaping. Reader can take care of your lawn and property because it's your nature and our nurture. Let them create an outdoor getaway in your backyard, and more importantly, at least in my case, to maintain that outdoor getaway. What kind of services are we talking? Well, I'm thinking about my place. Fertilization, spring cleanup, spring pruning. Last fall, I had the guys come out and just really waylay some brush between the yard and the pond that was just getting out of hand. They did such a great job. And that's what I like about Reader is they'll bring in a crew of, multiple people, oftentimes younger people, and they can get things done so much quicker than I could do it myself. Many of the things that Reader does for me at our place, I could do. Not all of them. I could do them, but I'm thinking, why? Why would I want to do this? Why would I want to spend hours doing this? Because you know what? I'm not one of those guys who goes out there and toils in the yard and enjoys it with a smile on my face. I'd rather be playing golf or fishing, a turkey hunting, or something else. So I let the guys from Reader do it. And in my case, we give John a call. He's kind of my one-stop shop there at Reader. Give John a call, and he says, Mike will take care of it, and boom, we're done. ReaderLandscaping.com, ReaderLandscaping.com. Been doing it 60 years. You know they're doing it right. Oh, some things I want to make sure to talk about here. I got a little list in front of me. It is now officially April. Turkey season coming up. I am concerned about the lack of birds that I'm seeing around. Now, I got to be honest. I haven't gone out and actually scouted the properties I'm likely to be hunting because those are properties that routinely hold a fair number of birds. So we'll see. But just in driving across the state, for example, last weekend I drove across the state and back, never saw one bird. Didn't see a flock, didn't see a strutter, didn't see a hen, didn't see a jake. And believe me, when I'm driving down the road, I'm probably looking off to the fields and woods more than I should be. I should be concentrating on the road. A lot of times I'm looking to see what critters are out there. We didn't see one bird. So that's a little bit of a concern. But we'll see. When turkey season starts, maybe we'll be overrun by birds. I'm just not seeing them now. Good news on the third annual Mike Avery Outdoors charity golf outing. We are good to go. We are locked in for Friday, July 31st at the West Branch Country Club this year, partnering with a group called Outdoor Mentors. And Outdoor Mentors is formed to get kids in the outdoors, which is exactly the reason why I did the golf outing, to raise money to get kids involved in the outdoors. If you go to outdoormentors.org, under the events tab, you will be able to sign up online for this event. It's Friday, July 31st at the West Branch Country Club. Coming up before then, though, on the 15th, Tax Day, our next Wednesday night live at the Lumberjack Restaurant in West Branch, the Forward Corporation Lumberjack Restaurant. As of the time we are recording this show, we still have tables. 989-343-0892 for reservations, 989-343-0892. Let's see, who's joining us for this one? Mr. AnglerQuest, Brad Dupuis, Nick Grillo of Michigan Brand, Rich Krazan of Killer Food Plots, Andy Weiss of Truck Trolley. Who else? Oh, I heard John Up of 41 Great Lakes is going to be joining us as well. So that's a nice surprise. So we're going to have some movers. Oh, Steve Windom of Outdoor Mentors. So some real movers and shakers in the outdoor world. Love to have you join us, 989-343-0892 for reservations. Finally, this is Easter weekend, a blessed Easter weekend to you at the Avery House. We've got family coming in, including the newest grandson and the newest great-granddaughter. So we will have Easter baskets. We'll have an Easter egg hunt. We'll have Easter bunny type things. We'll have all of the usual Easter stuff, and that's fine. That's wonderful. You know, you've got to do that for the kids. But just another reminder that there is a bigger reason for the celebration of Easter, and it is about the resurrection of a Savior. Okay, that's the way I look at things. That's my perspective. The way I look at things. If that makes you uncomfortable, I'm going to say I'm sorry, but I'm not, okay? In my world, the world where I live as a Christian, this is the single biggest event ever of all time. Because he rose from a grave, it allows us to live forever, to have salvation. And, you know, listen, the hunting and fishing stuff is cool. Hunting and fishing and shooting and trapping, I love this stuff. I live for this stuff. I promote this stuff all the time. But when it comes right down to it, the things that are most important in our world, in our life here on earth, that's the kind of stuff we're talking about. So a blessed Easter weekend to you and your families. Have a wonderful get-together. There'll be a Michigan brand ham at our house, as there always is for every holiday. All right, we'll take a break. When we come back, we're going to wrap it all up with wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar. I have no idea what Dave is doing this week, but you know, I never have an idea what Dave is doing. I find out when we get him on the phone what it's going to be, and you and I will find out together after the break. Welcome back to Outdoor Magazine. So glad to have you along with us this week. Such a blessing to be able to sit in this chair at this microphone for 3 hours every week, talking about the great outdoors here in the great state of Michigan, hunting, fishing, shooting, trapping, conservation issues, wild game cooking. You know, we wrap up each week's show with wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar. Dave is one of the most interesting people I've ever had the opportunity to meet and work with in my career. The guy is an absolute master in the kitchen, but you know what? More importantly, he's just to use a cliche, he's a prince of a guy. He's just the nicest guy you could ever hope to work with, and I've been blessed to work with him for a long, long time. David, welcome back. How you doing, buddy?
I'm very good. And yourself, Michael?
I am doing wonderful. Thanks for asking.
Boy, what a change in weather we've had, up and down.
I know. Hey, that's springtime in Michigan, right?
Oh, boy. You got a lot of ducks and geese on your pond, Mike?
We've got the perfect number of ducks and too many geese. How about you?
Same here.
Those big flying rats is all they are.
It tastes good, but other than that,
they're a pain. They're a pain. What are you thinking this week, Dave? Probably not goose, but what do you got for us?
Well, we got venison bourguignon, which is in the your video archives.
Yeah.
It's on page 137.
Okay.
And so this is kind of a large batch. You could make this for deer camp. So you need a couple of pounds of venison trimmed and cubed for stew-sized pieces, onion diced medium fine, 3 to 4 cloves of garlic diced up fine, 3 carrots diced medium, about the same size as the onions, 2 sticks of celery washed and diced medium, a quarter tablespoon of Italian spice, and about 6 ounces of a red wine, Burgundy or whatever. If you're going to be drinking wine with this meal, you could use the same, and it would come out really good. Just any good red wine other than a sweet one would be fine. You need a couple of tablespoons of better than bouillon. And if you're going to make a roux, you'll need a half a cup of flour and vegetable oil or melted butter, and 12-ounce package of mushrooms cut into quarters, and lots of fresh ground black pepper, flour, and oil. In a large, heavy bottom stock pot, because there's going to be quite a bit of volume here. Heat it very hot. Put a little bit of olive oil in it or whatever oil you're going to use. Brown the meat in small batches. Put that off to the side. Don't overcrowd it. You want to, caramelize it on all sides. When the meat's all done, return it to the pot. Add the onions, the garlic, the carrots, and the mushrooms, and the spices, and cook it for just a little while. Make sure it gets nice and hot. And then when it's all nice and hot, add the wine. And then you're going to add enough water to cover it so you're going to have a sauce. And so, however much you want. Grind in the black pepper to taste. More the merrier. Right, Mike?
Yep. Amen, brother.
Add more if needed. Stir often to eliminate scorching in the bottom of the pan. And if you're going to use a roux, you're going to mix up flour and oil, whether it be melted butter. And if not, use cornstarch. Cornstarch is probably a little bit easier. Stir in the mixture, get it very well, make sure there's no lumps. And when it's the right consistency, place it in a oven-proof casserole. And best to bake this dish at 350 degrees for about 2 hours. And make sure that the meat's tender. You might have to go a little bit more, depending on if you're using backstrap or leg meat. Leg meat's going to take a little bit longer. And if you're going to finish this on top of the stove, you want to stir it often, but very, very little bit of a bubble. You don't want to break up the meat and vegetables, but you want to make sure it doesn't scorch either. It stick on the bottom. It's a great dish. You could make this in advance and serve it at deer camp or fishing camp, or you could actually make it in a crock pot. You could follow the directions on the side of the crock pot as to how long to cook it. It's a great dish. I've sold the caterings for years and years and years.
just venison in general. I mean, we had at the Avery house this week, we had venison smash burgers, and Denise made a venison meatloaf that we're saving for the weekend. And man, it was just so good. And she did such a great job with it, and she had it seasoned and spiced just right. It was like, I can't get enough of this stuff. Wild game, fish and wild game is just such a wonderful treat.
We had venison stroganoff for supper the other night.
Nice. Wow. How about next week, Dave? Let's do, I don't know, what do you think, a fish recipe maybe?
All right, that sounds good.
Perfect. And then real quick before we let you go, how are things going at King's Dish?
Busy. We've been real busy.
Good.
Things are going really well.
Excellent.
We're getting a great response from the public.
All right. King's Dish in Standish. Wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar. You can see him there every week. And if you go there, make sure you say, hey, look, does the chef have a minute to come out and say hi? That would be, listen, if you meet Dave, you'll see what I'm talking about. All right, that's going to wrap up this week's Outdoor Magazine show. My name is Mike Avery. The website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. The email address is mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. I would love to hear from you. Have a blessed Easter weekend. We don't know what Mother Nature is going to bring to us this weekend, but it really doesn't matter, does it? All right, my friends, I'll talk to you next time right here on Outdoor Magazine.